Hey YouTube, how's it going? Jordan Birch here again. I want to talk about an issue today about custody of children. If some of you don't know and realize, there's a massive conspiracy going on in this country, and it's damaging and hurting the hearts and the minds of our youth. This is likely why this nation is in so troubled, because they have no father in their life. Even though at times the father may want to be involved in their life, and he's a perfectly good, sane, logical, providing father. There's such a thing in this country as called mother states. There should not be such a thing in this country called mother states. It should be called states. There should be 50-50 federal custody. It should be across the board, every single state. Every time you see custody, typically the liberal states favor the mother. California, New York, Illinois, Wisconsin. These states tend to favor the mother. And what they do is, a good father wants to be involved in the child's life. They rack up legal fees beyond belief, $100, $200, $300, $400, $500,000, and they break the father's will of wanting to be with the child. Now, would you want to be with your child if you had to pay $200, $300, $400, $500 over 5, 6, 7, 8 years of not seeing them, and then being alienated from you, and you having very little time from them? Even if you're a good man, at some point you have a breaking point where the system says no, and you cannot get them children. And this is a tragedy. I've seen it in many men today, and it's happening all over the place. And often the women that are in charge of these children are fighting the men only because they hate the men and want to hurt and harm the men, because they know that the thing those men love the most is those children. And so therefore they go after the man and hit at him as hard as they can, because they hate that man, oftentimes irrationally. Sometimes it is rationally and justified, but most times it's not. It's irrational. The man is a good man. He provides for his children. He loves his wife. He takes care of the family. He comes home every night, doesn't drink, doesn't gamble, doesn't do any bad things. Better than most men in this world and in this country. And yet this woman is attacking him violently and viciously with false protective orders, false arrests, lies. CPS, Child Protective Services, is called. Lies are made, and often the woman is abusing the children physically, and much less emotionally, verbally, spiritually, psychologically. They're abusing the children, and then it culminates in physical abuse. And Child Protective Services is on the woman's side. This is a systemic problem. We talk about systemic racism. How about systemic sexism against fathers who are good? Nobody's talking about that. And yet these men suffer tremendously. Financially, they suffer tremendously. They suffer, and they've given their 401ks, their houses, their cars, their lives, their jobs. They work multiple jobs just to provide for their attorney's fees, just to see their children for an hour or two. It is terribly sad. And the children often only want to be with their fathers. Think about that. They want to be with their fathers. And yet these women fight, and rack up $200,000, $300,000 in legal fees. And often the man is required or forced to pay for it. This is a sad issue. It needs to stop. 50-50 custody is sort of becoming the norm in several very conservative states and is spreading quickly. But this needs to become a federal law ASAP. We need to stop worrying about climate change. We need to stop worrying about inflation. None of that compares to what the pain of these children are facing. Jordan Peterson, a famous psychologist, said in a video that 50-50 is in the best interest of the children. And most psychologists nowadays agree with that. You would find very few who do not. So we need to do what's right for our children in their eyes. And if the family is divorced and they can't handle it, divorce is not ideal. You should try and work through problems in your marriage if you can. But a lot of times things are irreconcilable. Verbal abuse, violence, physical violence, drunkenness, gambling, sexual abuse, cheating, etc., etc. And this is not just happening with men doing it to women. This is happening with women doing it to men all the time. And guess who ends up with the kids in those cases? Even if they were violent towards their husband, even if they cheated on him, even if they spent all the money and took all the money, the women end up with the kids. The courts are against men and fathers. It needs to stop, and right now. So petition your governors, your senators, your representatives to initiate a federal law that custody would be 50-50 to start with in any divorce case. And if the mother or father wanted to prove otherwise, they should provide tangible evidence in court that should sway the judge's opinion to do so. Thank you guys. God bless. Have a good night.